Welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, guess what? I think we're going to get a look at exactly how crypto is going to be dealt with, certainly for the next couple years, and it won't involve Congress. And I think we're going to have former Ripple advisor Michael S. Barr, who is the VP Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, tell us exactly how. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter for exclusive content. Back underneath $1 trillion, $965 billion for the cryptocurrency space. We're off by 7.4% off of the news we've gotten. And we know that there's a lot to discuss. We know that they're coming after Bitcoin miners. We know that their SEC is come after those Bitcoin miners. We know that also that, Attorney General out of New York is now coming after Ethereum, it would appear. Look, there's a lot going on everywhere, but today we need to focus on this. We need to focus on how Ripple and XRP navigate through the waters of all this lack of clarity, certainly understanding that we are very, very near a summary judgment, and I think you're going to see evidence of that today. So now, Bitcoin just below 20,000, now above it just for a second here. Hopefully it gets its footing here, but it's off by 14.9% on the 7-day, 8.5% of that on the 24-hour. Ethereum now 9% off on the 24-hour, 14.6% on the 7-day. Tether market cap $71.7 billion. XRP is 36 cents. We're off by 7% on the 24-hour and 2.1% on the 7-day. Now, I offer you, if we get the clarity we're looking for, then you're talking about the top digital assets. Of the top digital assets, the only one that would have clarity would be XRP. I don't know what that looks like and how it transfers to price, but I tell you, I'm excited to see what comes of this summary judgment. But look at this. Shout out to Jason Cousins from Glipay Baby. Yeah, if you haven't checked out Glint, you need to. It's a great way to get gold, and you can spend it with a MasterCard debit card. It is an amazing product. I love what they offer. Check it out and see what my sponsors got there. They got a webinar coming up in 5 days on the new app and new features. You're going to want to tune into that as well, so make sure you check it out. And this is in light of all the bank run information and stuff that we're hearing of late here. Look, Silvergate certainly points to that, and then everybody else in the space is saying that this could kind of become this systemic cascading effect. Well, this has always been the concern and why I have Glipay, right? So make sure you check that out. Click the link underneath the video. Let's get started here. Stablecoins and Ether are commodities and should be regulated by the CFTC, says Rostin Benham. Now, look, we covered this yesterday, but I start here because we're going to look at some information where Michael S. Barr was speaking recently, and you're going to want to hear what he says about this space. It is very, very profound, no doubt about it. Okay, let's look at this. This is the BIS. I want you to hear this quick clip where they talk about interoperability, what is needed. It sounds a lot to me like they're talking about RippleNet and on-demand liquidity. It really does. Shout out to Mr. Mann for this one.
The payment system. So that's just one example. And the idea that we insist that licensed financial institutions are the only ones who provide financial services. So these are some of the ways we've done it. When it comes to KYC, AML, CFT, we have taken our requirements and also tried to, tear them up in a way that allows very small transactions on the back of mobile money to be done with very little KYC requirements. But then we restrict the transaction sizes. We restrict the limits. We have limits on transaction size, on daily limits, and we keep track on these transactions. So we've tried to marry some of these objectives. The other thing we've done is ourselves as a central bank to invest in infrastructure, in public goods, in addition to regulation. We've invested in, for example, an interoperable framework and infrastructure in the payment.
And there we go, in the payment sector. And that's really important, the interoperable framework. Now, look, I want to keep going because we got a lot to check out here. Reminder for those that are new to the space very quickly, Michael S. Barr is the Vice President of the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve System, right? Michael S. Barr is also a former U.S. Treasury official and former Ripple advisor as well, and went to there to serve as the VP Board of Governors. This is a reminder that Michael S. Barr is not just Michael S. Barr from the U.S. Treasury. Michael S. Barr is a key architect of the Dodd-Frank Act, which birthed the Financial Stability Oversight Council, known as FSOC, that you hear me talk about so much. One of the areas of contention of how FSOC changed how they label and identify the risk of non-banks, which is exactly what Ripple and RippleNet would be, right? Then we have another piece of information here where it talks about in this CoinDesk article when Michael S. Barr was confirmed to go to the VP Board of Governors for the Fed, that one of the things he will absolutely be focused on especially is stable coins and how cryptocurrencies and stable coins can affect the traditional financial system. Then it brings me to this, and shout out to 801 XRP for this great clip. We got two, and you need to see them both. And then you're going to hear from David Schwartz as well before we get out of here. Listen to this clip here of the Federal Vice Chairman, Michael Barr, in banking sector. When we think of regulating crypto-related activities, we don't think, aha, now we have a new type of orange. We need to have new orange regulation. We say this orange looks a lot like the old orange we already eat, and we try to regulate it that light. Listen to what he says here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to see you again. If you look around the world, many countries, many jurisdictions around the world are more advanced in their regulatory frameworks than we are here in the United States with respect to how to regulate crypto-related activities. The Europeans have a comprehensive framework that's coming into place. The Japanese have a comprehensive framework. Many countries around the world have developed an approach to this sector. Traditionally, in the United States, it's hard for us to come up with those types of regulatory moments. And we have an existing regulatory infrastructure that can be adapted to new products and services.
We have an existing regulatory infrastructure that can be adapted to new products and services. You hear what he's saying, right? What I'm hearing him say there is that we're going to push these things. The majority of them are, in fact, digital asset securities, and there's a framework for that, whether they look a little different or not.
And that is usually the way the United States ends up moving forward with regulating a new kind of product, is to say, is this new kind of product like an existing product that we develop? And in what ways can we therefore regulate it using our existing tools? And in the absence of Congress adapting a different framework, that's the framework we use. So when we think about, in the banking sector, when we think about regulating crypto-related activities, we don't think, we now have a new type of orange. We need to have new orange regulation. We say this new orange looks a lot like the oranges that we already eat. And so we think about how to regulate it in that light and modify our rules for any different kinds of risks that are posed by the activity. And in the absence of Congress stepping in with comprehensive regulation, I think that's the approach you'll continue to see here in the United States.
So in other words, the whack-a-mole approach from the SEC here is exactly what has been desired. I have said this, that there is no new day coming, right? Right side, left side, they all agree that there is, what you see happening is what Michael Barr is explaining here, right? Michael S. Barr is being more honest to me than we've heard anybody be in Congress. They're going to go after it and shove it in the framework. But listen to this clip.
Well, let me try, and I think we've got maybe three categories of questions. In the first category, it's really a question about what's inside and outside the regulatory perimeter. And as you and your students know, because you're in the middle of this now, that is a pervasive question in banking regulation, and has been throughout our history. And there's always going to be some set of activities that happen outside of whatever line you draw. And then the question is, how comfortable do you feel about that activity being outside the perimeter, and how should it be regulated if it's not? My view is not everything has to be in the banking system. It's fine for there to be market activities that occur outside of banks, outside of prudential supervision.
Outside of prudential supervision. Well, that's what FSOC is. The Financial Stability Oversight Council, the Treasury. It's a body of the Fed, the Treasury, the SEC, the CFTC, the OCC, right? The CFPB, right? That's what makes up FSOC. And that's what makes them a prudential regulator that sits above a market regulator like just the CFTC or just the SEC. Keep listening.
We still need for those kinds of activities, strong rules of the road. One of the reasons that we have the most, effective and innovative and efficient capital markets in the world is because we have really good, strict laws that enforce investor protection, that enforce transparency, that enforce segregation of client assets, that have rules about what kinds of entity can do what functions, that separate functions where there might be serious conflicts of interest. And so those rules have created, I think, one of the most vibrant and efficient markets in the world. The crypto sector is trying to operate without those rules, and I think that's a significant risk.
Listen to this.
With respect to stablecoins, it's in addition to the kinds of market risks that I described, there's a serious prudential risk, which is that you have an unregulated, unsupervised form of private money that then gains traction because of network effects, and then once people are used to using it, collapses because it doesn't have the appropriate controls. And if you think about various periods in our U.S. history, if you think about the period before the Comptroller of the Currency's office was established and before national banknotes were issued in the Civil War, we had lots of private money. Private banknotes were used. We had institutions offering, individual notes that people then had to go negotiate with each other about what they were really worth. Is it really worth $1 if it says it's worth $1, or because it's hard to trade in, is it worth less? And that was highly inefficient. And one of the really important innovations coming out of the Civil War from a financial perspective was the idea that we had one unit of account, one currency, and that is a much more efficient way to run an economy, and more importantly, a much more financially stable way to run an economy.
Listen here.
You can have multiple competing forms of private money that are inefficient. You can have very large forms of private money that end up being quite destabilizing. You can think of a stablecoin as a completely unregulated money market fund attached to a payments rail.
Did you hear what he just said?
You can think of a stablecoin as a completely unregulated money market fund attached to a payments rail, and that combination is quite explosive, potentially quite dangerous, and that's why Chair Powell has made this clear. Vice Chair Brainerd, when she was at the Fed, made this clear. I've made it clear that stablecoins really do need to have prudential oversight, prudential supervision.
And there you have it right there. And that's pretty much the gist of it. And what I'm seeing out of those comments is this: prudential regulation. That means coming from the Treasury and FSOC, right? OFAC as well to oversee the foreign asset side. Now, what I find interesting about this is that we've heard from John Deaton, we've heard from others that we won't get legislation from Congress for at least 2 years. That is going to make the Prudential regulator extremely important. It is going to make what Michael S. Barr is saying extremely important. And I believe it's also revealing. So for the next 2 years, we're going to hear more from FSOC and the Treasury on stablecoins than we probably will Congress. And what I would imagine is understanding that we're seeing Bitcoin now a target. Ethereum looks to be becoming a target. They're going after the different types of technologies, and they are going to try to set precedent through legal action, just like what has been taking place with the SEC through regulating by enforcement. I'm not a fan of it either. But what I see happening here is that the ability for FSOC to do its job, as Elizabeth Warren begged for them to do so she wouldn't have to do hers last summer, they'll become the referee on this field, at least to an extent of the stable coins, while Congress sits back and watches Gary Gensler and the CFTC continue to go after and make the cases they need to make to set precedent for their agencies. And whatever is left, Congress will write legislation to gap fill the holes needed to close it and regulate this technological space. That's what I see taking place here. This is a clip here that I saw from Darren Moore, 46,000 followers. Why is it not 246,000 followers? The guy's amazing. If you haven't followed him, follow him and watch everything. Shout out to him. Listen to this clip of David Schwartz talking about Project Icebreaker some time ago. This is back when he had his ortho surgery, I believe, or something. However, you'll get a sense of what's going on here. People from the Fed, people from the IMF, people from the BIS, and looky here, Michael S. Barr sitting in there too. Come on in.
If you're looking at cross-border, that key factor is interoperability. You're working across jurisdictions and across assets. You need a neutral asset in between different CBDCs, or your liquidity is going to be divided among the n-squared pairs of CBDCs. Similarly, if other assets, such as securities around the world, get tokenized, there's even more need for a neutral asset between multiple CBDCs and possibly a large number of new assets in new asset classes. A central bank is not going to issue a digital asset that behaves like BTC, XRP, or Ethereum. These are neutral assets that are free from a single jurisdictional control. So CBDCs are not going to usurp the role of universal settlement assets. You need a neutral asset going in between CBDCs, serving as a settlement across jurisdictions, accepted by all because everyone can come to accept that they can't get the whole world to use an asset they control. And so an asset nobody can control is preferable to one controlled by their geopolitical competitors. Bitcoin is sometimes pitched as the interoperability solution, and in the early days, that almost seemed believable. But as we now have some 1,500 cryptocurrencies that don't interoperate, and almost nothing non-crypto interoperates with Bitcoin, we just recreated the new version of the same walled garden problem. Instead of building an internet based on compatibility, we built one network and required everyone to join that network, demanding too many sacrifices too quickly. Internet without Cisco. So it can't be just one network. And if there's one network at the hub, that network has to be built for that role, with interoperability taking priority over everyone do things our way. It has to be based on bridges, not on walls. XRP and the XRP ledger were built specifically for this kind of role. The XRP ledger was purpose-built for transacting in both the native neutral asset, XRP, and also in issued assets, a bridge to CBDCs, stablecoins, other payment networks, and other kinds of assets such as securities. The XRP ledger has asset issuance built into the protocol. Issuance, authorization, payment, settlement, and exchange are native operations with simple APIs. Issued assets can represent fiat currency, securities, or anything else of fungible value that works like a currency. But of course, the XRP ledger can't handle all the world's payments. And I'm not proposing a one network solution. That's totally unrealistic. People want different things, and different countries have different problems. But XRP can be the hub or backbone that provides the fast international settlement piece, competing with other possible solutions to that same problem.
There you go, right there. The XRP ledger is a decentralized exchange for the world. They're just looking to help make that market. That's why you see the automated market makers brought in, to cut out the arbitrage. So it is the best exchange. It is the best decentralized world exchange to handle fast international settlement. That's what we're talking about. Let's hear that again right there.
Else of fungible value that works like a currency. But of course, the XRP ledger can't handle all the world's payments. And I'm not proposing a one network solution. That's totally unrealistic. People want different things, and different countries have different problems. But XRP can be the hub or backbone that provides the fast international settlement piece, competing with other possible solutions to that same problem.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Look, this is getting exciting to me, and that's why I think there's a great chance that XRP could become or deemed a stablecoin, because it is the bridge that works on the decentralized ledger, which could interoperate with CBDCs and all the other products that David mentioned. The core component isn't XRP, it's everything else. XRP is just there to help settle where needed, where applicable. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. This is getting good. I'll catch all of you on the next one.